Warm good evening to everyone. So today we are going to start day 4 of session. I request Vidya ma'am to start the session with a welcome note.
Good evening all. Namaste. Welcome all for the fourth day of Navaratri session. On this fourth day of Navaratri session, we celebrate strength and the wisdom. Let's channelize this energy as I introducing our esteemed speaker, Dr. Purnima S.C. Dr. Purnima S.C. is a research professor, Center for Educational and Social Studies, Bengaluru. Dr. Purnima S.C. has 30 years of experience in teaching, research and consulting. She has served as a professor, HOD at various institutes of Bengaluru, successfully worked on several projects like innovation in public administration, psychological and social cultural dimensions, impact on call center, that is NESCOM, consulting project at a Bowater School of Management, Melbourne, Australia. She has more than 30 publications to her credits and served as an editorial board member of management journals. This is a brief introduction of our speaker, Dr. Purnima S.C. Welcome, ma'am. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome the Purnima ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Vidya. Well, should I be sharing the slides?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I hope it's visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Good evening to one and all here. Well, this is a very nascent approach, and I'm just putting my first foot forward in looking at the scriptures and trying to map the scriptures to what we call as the modern day management. It's also an attempt that as faculty members, we've been using, examples from the textbooks that's been provided since time immemorial, wherein we take corporate examples and we stick on to the rules, the principles that's been given. So in my journey of reading about what is Indian management and how, the journey of Indian management has gone through many phases, the stories that are there. I have, seen a few very interesting twists and turns. I've also seen a few very noticeable and very commendable facts and figures. So I just thought this would be a nice platform to share my views relating to those. So I have given a title wherein I talk about a deeper perspective of management beyond principles, because all of us have been sticking on to the 14 principles that is given. So I just want to put forth my views into the other add-ons that can be given to the 14 principles. Now, basically, the journey of my presentation would be wherein I would take you to what we call as the scientific management and how the scientific management evolved to the present day in a different Western perspective, and then how the Eastern wisdom needs to be synchronized or needs to be embedded into the Western, ideologies that was or principles that were been practiced all the time. So in this journey, I will take some references of some stories of the past, some stories from the Mahabharata, some stories that is being narrated, or verses from the Bhagavad Gita. I also thought, Jainism also contributed, because predominantly, if we see, they are the ones who have made a notable mark in the area of business and management. So I thought, let me look at those pages also. So a little bit of the Jain scriptures also I've made an attempt to relate to the principles of management. So in this journey, I start with basically looking at, what is scientific management and how the journey has come through. Now, in scientific management, we saw, replacing rules of the thumb with the science, the best way to perform a particular task. There is some scientific method that we are on a time and motion study. We thought about the task, the environment, and the possible outcomes that have to be seen. And we also looked into what knowledge plus action and how planning and implementation would help us to reach a particular goal. Now, in this journey, we also added that human beings are important and their contribution is also important. So thereby, achieving harmony in the action through cooperation of all human beings and establishing a relationship is something that is very important. Now, if you take Bhagavad Gita, the chapter 3, verse 3, it mentions about how they describe that there are two ways to accomplish the goal. That's the knowledge and the action. And both the paths lead to one objective, and the most support that is required between these knowledge and action, which will create what we call as the end result, the goal. And when we refer to the Bhagavad Gita again, the chapter 3, verse 16, talks about the harmony, which is the contribution of all, associated to this factor of reaching a goal, to say that that is what makes the wheel turn. The wheel has to be set into motion and the speed has to pick up. And this is possible only and only when all related factors, including the people, harmoniously put their efforts to reach that particular goal. Now, in this direction, we also see the presence of what we call as, the development of each and every individual who is doing that work and who's doing that work at the maximum capacity. So, saliently, if we are looking at it, is more of cultivating a habit of walking through the journey of elevating one's own self and thereby reaching the goal, which is at a greater extent, the maximum capacity that can be got when we are talking in terms of productivity. The next, when we see the relationship as to the terms that we use in the management, Bhagavad Gita talks about karma, jnana, bhakti, yukti, mukti, warrior, and sarati. Now, when we say karma, it is the action. The jnana, the knowledge. The bhakti is the dedication that one has. Yukti is the intellect of the employees who are involved or the people who are involved in the organization. Mukti can be referred to the freedom that is given to the employees, the kind of perception of doing what one wants to do in the organization. And this is being enabled, with the power that has been given for the warriors, who are the executives, and the directors, who are the Sarati, that's the manager. Now, in this particular framework, when we go, we are trying to, bring in what we call as the Eastern wisdom to the Western science. Now, this Eastern wisdom to the Western science is wherein we see a combination that you can lay a path of achieving the social goals, national goals, organizational goals, and individual goals. The need for Indianization of management was felt by Professor S.K. Chakrabarty, way back in 1985. He mentions about it in his book, Human Resource Development. In the early 50s, when Japanese introduced the TQM as a solution for organization problems, they matched it to what is apt to their culture. When we see Buddhism talks about acceptance of a master. And in that, we see the underlying law that governs this acceptance of a master. We see something called as Dhamma, that is the truth. And we also see the Sangha, that is the encouragement for a collective effort. Now, this collective effort is wherein we are looking at, if you can relate, we can relate it to the quality circles that's involved. So it is necessary for us, and it is advantageous for us when we are talking about bridging this gap or trying to synchronize or trying to put across the management principles based on the nature of psycho philosophy of India.
Ma'am, the
Should I be taking your question?
sorry,
Yeah.
Kagatama. Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. That PPT, it has
Mhm.
become for full slideshow
Oh,
now.
no, 1 second, 1 second. The thing is, I'll just yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. Now, what are the problems that are alive? When we see the problems that's there, which is, yet profoundly seen in the organizations, are dealing with the people around us, the people factor, understanding what motivates people. It's the journey is going on and on, that every time there is an experimentation that's been done. Okay, yeah, all theories can be used, and then yet there is an attrition, yes, there is a discontentment, yet there is a problem of complete commitment. Now, so in this journey, we need to again see how we can look at this with a different perspective. And we also can see doing one's work in the most efficient manner is something that has to be understood. What is this when we are talking about what is the most efficient manner? We also need to see that leaders who are the driving force for the organization, the guiding force for the organization. How do we put them into the high performance category or high performance range? And how do we create organizations that can live long? Because in the past, in the recent times, if you see, there are organizations which, the great funda that is happening around is the startup culture that we see. And you call it entrepreneurship, you call it as, experimentation towards entrepreneurship. So every time people are getting new ideas, experimenting, setting up businesses, and they don't mind closing the businesses, or they don't strive to have a long life for their businesses. So how do we create organizations that can live long, as we see in the present trends that are going on? Now, in this direction, we can see the deeper management as a solution. Now, when I say deeper management as a solution, that's where I've taken a reference to the alternative thoughts for management from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, a text for the spiritual progress and self-realization. Now, why did I take this? When I was reading, I just, saw a few quotes and comments wherein Swami Vivekananda also spoke by saying that this great poem is held to be the crown jewel of all Indian literature. It's a kind of commentary on Vedas, and it is these teachings which make this poem so wonderful. Practically, the whole Vedanta philosophy is included in them. So then, yeah, and comments by Mahatma Gandhi, who writes, wherein he says that Gita became an infallible guide to conduct. It became a dictionary for him for the daily reference, as you refer for English dictionary for meaning of English words. That he understood that he has to turn on to the Bhagavad Gita when he wants to get a solution, a ready reckoner for all the troubles and trials relating to conduct. In this journey, I also looked into Jainism, basically to say that, when we look into the text of Jainism, the Tattvartha Sutra, um, it is the agamas and shrutas which are directly derived from from the Tirthankaras. And the Jain text of Tattvartha Sutra talks about nature of reality. It talks about importance of how Jainism is compared between compared with the Brahma Sutras and Yoga Sutras. It presents a complete philosophy of 350 sutras over 10 chapters. Now, the main crux of Jainism that all of us understand is wherein we look at the 12 anuvratas, the non-violence, truthfulness, chastity, non-stealing, non-possessiveness, limitation of directional movement, limitation of aerial movement, avoidable activities, equanimity, specific fasting, limiting consumables and non-consumables, and hospitality. These 12 vows or anuvratas that we are talking about, it helps in shaping the right value, right faith, right knowledge, and the right conduct. Now, I'll be taking a little of all these and wherever necessary, maybe putting a little more detail about each of these anuvratas. Now, when I'm looking at Henry Fayol's 14 principles, I thought, let me go beyond the principles. So with the 14 principles of Henry Fayol, which is necessary, of course, we are trying to imbibe a little of the Eastern wisdom. So when we are taking the Indian management as a thought, I just could, through my research, bring in another 14 of them to a little bit of an understanding as something which is more important, something which is a necessity to be understood in the current times to excel in management or to give a different perspective for the term management. Now, in this line, the first principle that I would like to share with all of you is developing the third eye. This is something written, which is an old thought again. Now, what do I mean by the third eye? A third eye is an insight. It's something that, developing a third eye means wherein you see the two aspects of everything. One is what you can see, that's the real, and something which is unreal, or what is the hidden one, what is something which is inside the real. Now, this is where it is necessary to see the unreal through the real so that an action is righteously done. Now, what do I mean by righteously done? Righteously is wherein I talk according to Jainism, we talk about righteously saying that it is justifiable more into the per se of the organization and the community and the world as a whole. So that is where we go into the area of seeing the unreal through the real. The eye of wisdom, vision, insight into each and every situation that comes into when you are taking decisions in the organization. S.H. Sherlikar comments in a very subtle and very clear manner that intangible subject and gross tangible objects are equally important. One must develop one's third jnana chakshu and the eye of wisdom, vision, and insight, and a foresight. I think this is something that is not really new for all of us, but it's not been put as a principle. So this is an effort to put it as a principle, which can be added on to say that, yes, this is important. Because whenever we are talking about, if we go into a cognition mode, that's an understanding mode, we see beyond the obvious. And when you do a strategic thought process, you are developing a clear vision. A strategic planning process always involves a rationality wherein there is some justification. There is justification for self, and there is also justification for all concerned. So in this journey, when I was looking into the five types of jnana that is being written in the scriptures of the Jain philosophy, I see mati jnana, which is the sensory knowledge. We go into the Shruta Jnana, that is the scriptural knowledge. Now, what makes the third eye open, or what makes the third eye an important factor when you're taking decisions, or when you are engaged in management, is wherein we are looking at Avadhi Jnana. Avadhi Jnana is wherein you're perceiving things or events in the future or beyond the normal sensory contact, something that is visualized after seeing the reality that's going to come. And we also sometimes go into the Mana Paryaya Jnana, which is a telepathy. May not be into omni signs of Kevala Jnana, but definitely in organizations, when decisions are taken, it is seen that you go into a cognition, you see something which is, unreal in the tangible world. And this is, or this can be captured as the third eye, or seeing beyond the real. The next that I thought was what was missing, or what could add value, is the immortal organization soul. Now, we talk about organization culture, we talk about the DNA of the organization when we are teaching, when we are looking into the perspective of effective and efficient management. But when we are seeing this, what is the organization soul? It's the spirit of the organization, the mind, the sense, the soul in which, the decision system lays. Every decision that is taken in the organization, you see that there is a flow of the culture of the organization in the decisions that have been taken in the organization. That is because of, when we are talking about culture, we're talking about the value system, we're talking about the beliefs that are there, the character of the organization, the feelings that has to be depicted. That is where we see, the jivas of the organization. Now, this jivas of the organization is wherein we look at the Baddha Jiva. Baddha Jiva is to say, when you go to a cycle of existence and non-existence. And in this manner, we see that organizations have what we call as a cyclical journey, but together with it, there is a rationale that they need to achieve their goals through what we call as the organization soul. So there is an immortal organization soul, the culture of the organization that has to prevail. And we also see that this culture of the organization that prevails lays in between what we call as the truth, the belief, the character, and the feelings of the organization. Now, when I was looking into this, I also, saw certain references when we are looking into the organization context in Bhagavad Gita, the chapter 2, verse 21, where Krishna says, "He who knows that is indestructible and eternal, uncreate and unchanging, how can such a person slay anyone?" When he's talking to Partha, that is Arjuna, in the organizational context, if we have to put it, the references that I would be giving would support the statement. It can be interpreted that people in the organization, to realize that people may come and go, the systems and policies may change, but the soul of the organization never is destroyed. That is where we see the immortal aspect of the organization soul, the culture in the organization, or the crux, or what we say, the beliefs systems that goes into the organization. It stays, though there are a lot of managerial changes that may happen. So that is where this becomes one of the principles that can be added on. And when we are looking into Jainism theory, knowledge is considered as soul. Yeah, they say that knowledge is something that is not to be considered as to be acquired or possessed or grasped. It is something that a state of a soul. So a very simple understanding here is wherein when I read so much, what is it that I read is a conscious decision made by the reader. So that is because it is me, I'm reading this. So that is where knowledge is the soul itself. It is whatever is available to me, I don't read, I don't internalize. I internalize only what I feel comfortable in internalizing, what I connect with, and thereby knowledge is considered as a soul. Now, coming into the third one that I have, added is devotion to duty. Now, when we're talking about duty and devotion, um, it is a perspective. It is what I'm looking at when I'm talking about the job that I am doing. Here, I would like to mention, I will just give a small story, a reference, again from, the small stories that are available from the Mahabharata times. A little modernization into the story. There are three individuals, who are involved in the construction of a temple, practicing the art of stone cutting. Um, a HR person there, approaches, and then to understand what it means to do the job, he asked the first individual. The first individual, the stone cutter, he expresses his engagement in the task as a means of sustaining his impoverished family. So it is just the need that is there. He viewed his work merely as a source of livelihood there. So that is one aspect of looking at the job. The second stone cutter, filled with a sense of pride, he said that I want to create something which is exceptionally good. That is where we see the passion towards the work that he's doing. Whereas the third stone cutter, we see a visionary in him when he says he shared his aspirations of constructing the most exquisite temple in the nation. Now, this is where we see the devotion towards the work. He saw his work as an opportunity to create something profoundly beautiful and significant. Although their roles were identical, you can see the three perspectives, which is different from each other. And that is where devotion to duty comes as important when we are talking about management. The teachings of the Gita and the Bhagavad Gita encourages individuals to cultivate a visionary outlook in their work, emphasizing the development of broader vision that serves the common goal. If you go into, reading the Bhagavad Gita in the chapters, chapter 2, especially the verses 31, 33, and 34, we can see that, the duty being shown as the most important uh, aspect of looking at the job as, if you are not fulfilling it, it will be a sin. So that's the expression that's been given. So the essence lies in the wholehearted dedication that one individual can show towards the duty, and how you strive towards excellence, and not doing it simply for the sake of it, but looking at it at what it can be exemplified in. The next one that I have put is the stability in the approach, basically to say there should be a flow. There should be a flow wherein it is a requirement by the society. It is a requirement towards the obligations that are there, and fulfilling the expectations of the society. Now that is where when you go through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, also when an organization passes through, we can see that the organization needs to become a good corporate citizen. That is the desire of the society. You're fulfilling a greater objective there. Now, in this stability in the approach, we also look into how it is important for an organization to look at an aspect of going beyond what is expected out of it, and giving that particular feel of recognition as a contributor to the society. The next one is free from the pair of opposites. It's very important to perform a task not for the result, but for the task itself. Now, when I say free from dualities, it is the success and the failure. We are not seeing the success and the failure. We are not seeing it as opposites. We are seeing it as a learning. So cultivating a calm mind in the face of failure allows a lot of introspection. And I think that is the reason that any organization, when we are talking about management, we are talking about what we call as the SWOT analysis. So, when we are talking about a SWOT, the threats, which have to be conquered is conquered only and only when you analyze the failures and then overcome those failures. Adi Shankaracharya, the renowned guru, stated that the skill required in performing one's duty lies in maintaining an evenness of mind in the face of both success and failure. And cultivating this calm mind and during the failure is wherein you develop a nature of introspection and understanding the process of what went wrong, and analyzing the causes behind how this outcome could have been changed. So the sixth one is control over senses, the state of mind that can maintain a composed and positive demeanor or restore it when disrupted, whenever you have unpredictable external challenges in the work and the social life. Now that is where we call it as internal stability and tranquility. Winning over the greed, envious, egotism, anger, frustration, and distress. A very simple story. I think many of you would have heard it, would have read it. The Yayati syndrome, and then he asks his son to take back the blessing that he had got to be young, because he realized that the conflict between the external acquisitions driven by what we call as the extrinsic motivation is very, very, very mean, or very, very unimportant when we think about the inner values and the conscious guide that's given through the intrinsic motivation. In Jainism, we refer that with Uttama Samyama Dharma. What is Sam? Sam is togetherness, a binding and integration with each other. Yama is a discipline. So if you, as an organization, develop an Uttama Samyama Dharma, you safeguard your own soul, where organizations need to safeguard their soul. The culture has to be kept intact and not get going with whatever is the extrinsic pleasures that are available, or extrinsic motives that encourage the organization to go a little haywire. So that is where you need to come into the togetherness, the binding, the integration with the discipline that is Samyama Dharma. Now coming to the next, the seventh one is concentration of the task or the work. Now, concentration is wherein we are looking at the principle of work as a motivator, and it's generally argued by many as an undermining, factor when we are talking about work ethics. It's the focus on task and not the result. The result will follow. That's a very simple way to understand it. You need to look into the motivating yourself, emphasizing that doing the work is more important than the work is going to give to you. So that's where we talk about concentration of work. Now, the reference is also there from the Gita, wherein it suggests that focusing on the task itself is more important than looking at the personal gains. The eighth one is neutralizing situational effect. Now, when I think pretty much in practice, when we are talking about management, though not written in principles, when we say chain of command, chain of the flow of communication, authority, the scalar principle, we whenever there is a situational effect, you tend to neutralize it. And why you tend to neutralize it? You neutralize it because for the result to be good, to achieve the goal, where you see that there is an advantage. So that is where you're going a little, outside the framework which is being suggested to you. Now, when you're talking about neutralizing the situation effect, I just came across this particular verse which talks about, um, exercising the authority of a particular kind, when Duryodhana considered it better to approach Dronacharya himself rather than to summon the Acharya to meet him, so that in this manner, he went across the chain of that, or the network that he had to follow in communication. And when it is also seen that he established a good chain of command, which helped him to get a good feel about the respect that he's giving to his acharya, and also the team respected the authority flow that was not adhered to, the power structure that was not adhered to. So in many of the organizations we see where in the present day, this particular aspect of neutralizing the situational effect. That means to say that when we are looking at situations, how do I neutralize the effect of power relations and of the communication networks for a greater advantage of achieving the goal? When the ninth one, I've put it as strive for perfection. Now, imperfection, I thought this would be the best reference to be given. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 37, as the fire which is kindled turns its fuel to ashes, O Arjuna, even so does the fire of wisdom turn to ashes all work. It indicates the work performed with perfection is utilized to the fullest extent as the perfect fire fully that converts the full fuel to the fullest extent. That's the ashes. That's where we see all inputs converted into the maximum output through the wisdom. Now, this helps in increasing efficiency and effectiveness, and that's where we see the output as a quality output. In another reference also, wherein I came across in the chapter 5, verse 2, 4, 5, and 6 that I would like to quote, talks about unselfish performance. The status which is obtained by men of renunciation is reached by men of action. So unless and until you perform, you don't go into the path of perfection. Now, the path of knowledge and the path of action is something that is very important. I think action, you learn the complexities and the technicalities that is associated to doing the particular job, which, gradually it also results in increase of the knowledge. Now, by following the path of knowledge alone, a greater effort has to be put to understand the technicality. So we vouch that a real action is more important, and thereby it is the best when you are striving for perfection. The 10th one that goes is when we're talking about selfless motive, selfless leadership, a style that creates trust and cooperation within an organization. Krishna emphasizes that he is the source of strength for those who possess selflessness and detachment, while also serving as a rightful ambition within the individuals who embrace righteousness. According to the teachings of Lord Mahavira in the era of 510 BC, in Avashyaka Sutra, we related to value-based management, in which we can see the scope of value-based management moving from stakeholders and community towards the whole economy. We are trying to say that the focus is not only towards the performance of an organization, focus is not only towards the stakeholders, but towards the whole of the economy. Now, this is where, in Avashyaka Sutra, we talk about morally justifiable acts, where the return on investment will automatically come as a byproduct of the process that is carried down in the organization. Now, this is where we call, when we are talking about a job being done in the right way, at the right time, with a correct motive. So that is where we see selfless motive. The sense of sacrifice. Here, the importance is given to the sacrifice, as in we are talking about doing the work detached by our own self. So you're concentrating more on improving the way that you're doing the work that has come as an outcome, and not attaching to the result that it's going to give you. So that is where you talk about the sense of sacrifice. The 12th one is organization's self-satisfaction. Satisfaction of the organization as a whole. When we are talking about self-satisfaction, because we are talking about an existence in the organization, we are talking about the soul of the organization, the culture of the organization, the satisfaction of the organization also plays a greater role. Satisfaction of the organization as a whole, wherein we are looking beyond one's own self. That's something that is looked upon as I would like to say, work for work's sake and not for results. The Gita expounds on the concept of detachment from the external rewards. Two dispositions that are being spoken is, if sincere effort leads to success, the credit should not solely attribute to the doer, but if sincere effort results to failure, the blame should not be entirely placed on the doer again. Thus, the dimensions of work ethics, that's karma yoga. The service is combined with bhakti yoga, that's the devotion towards the work. Now, when we looked into the earlier part, how do I see the work? The attitude in which, the perception in which that I see the work, it should be more of a devotion than of a self-gratification. Thus, work itself becomes a form of worship, which is known as the Seva Yoga. The 14th one and the last one that I have put in as the extension of Henry Ford's principle is developing of Rajashish. Rajashish is wherein we are talking about a noble king, from the family of the nobles, a king comes into existence, and that is where you call him a Rajashish, a Shrestha among the Rajas. Sri Krishna's words from the Gita resonate. Whatever the excellent and best ones do, the commoners will follow. That is where we see the leadership going. Visionary leaders should possess missionary qualities, a strong practical approach, intense dynamism, and ability to transform dreams into reality. Now, this is where in Jainism, I just came across the Panchashila model of leadership. May not be able to dwell too much into it, but then the Panchashila model of leadership talks about the five, stambhas, or five guidelines that we follow, a model of where an organization's survival and growth can be, seen as a success factor, or can be seen as a fulfillment factor. Now, these Panchashila is Satya, Ahimsa, Asteya, Aparigraha, and Brahmacharya. Basically, to see that when we are talking about Asteya, we generally talk about, not stealing. It is the right sense of it, the right way of looking at it is not being jealous, not looking at the competitors, not looking at the surrounding and saying that I don't have, or, I don't possess, and thereby I need to possess. The Rajashree, when we are talking about developing this quality, we are talking about developing a quality in the organization, as in the organization aims to achieve certain targets, aims to achieve certain levels, and thereby it goes, and not because of any externalities. That is where there is no greed. There is more of a supreme, sense of possession that has to be looked into. So I hope I've done some justification here relating to the extension of the principles, whatever I could, internalize from my readings of quite a few of the literature that is available. Much more has to be done. And I would also like to say that, when we are looking at the system that we are into, when we have to hold on to the soil, we make a lot of effort. And this holding on to the soil is the culture that we are looking at. So that's why I thought, this would be an apt ending wherein I say, now that we have started something as an Indian management, how many of my examples in the classroom, how many of the thoughts of mine that flow in the classroom can be driven towards idealizing the roots of my culture, and thereby building on to the concept of management, than going with a very superficial way of what is being told to us. So that's where I thought this would be apt. I hope I made my points clear.
Now,
Yeah.
ma'am, it was an enlightening session. Now we'll have a question and answering session.
Oh yeah, hopefully I could take some of them. Yeah.
I request the participants to post their
Post-
questions in the Q&A box, chat box, or anyone wants to speak or ask question to the session speaker can raise the hand. Anyone? Ma'am, before anyone asks the
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
even I have, because the practice of detachment,
Hmm.
it is very edgy, but sometimes we take it in a very negative way, because at work, detachment is important, but how efficiently we can work along with the detachment is something is very edgy. Would you throw some light?
Uh, yeah. See, that is where, we say detachment is taken in the literary sense of it. When we're talking about a work, it is not the detachment that we are looking at. It is not that work is separate from me. I am work, and the work is my soul. So that is what is expected. So when I'm doing a particular job, I am looking at the job as not the job per se only, but as me as a job. So that is where the detachment is, not towards my feelings of what I get from the job, but what am I giving to the job, right? So detachment is a meaning which we understand in a form that that is separate from what we are, but not necessarily that. At least that is what I have understood
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
by
So
all these
somewhere
things.
I get this
Yes.
question also when speaking, when you say detachment, practice detachment work, doesn't that affects the efficiency of the individual?
Yes, definitely. Because when you're talking about detachment as a literal meaning, then you are not considering it as yours,
Correct.
right? But then it is not that you are not considering it as yours. It is as you are considering it as you only,
Hmm.
not yours, but you only.
Yes, ma'am. The unique part of the session that you brought the Jain value and Jain literature, which no other
Yes.
speakers
Yeah.
have thrown
Quite
light
a
on
lot,
this.
quite a
Yes,
lot is there, but
ma'am.
I think I need some more time, some more clarity.
Mhm.
Because I could look into maybe somewhere around 8 to 10 papers, and a little into whatever Jainism I have understood, because me being a Jain myself. So I thought, let me do a little probing in into the Jainism concept. That's where we have been in our community. A little effort is being done to teach us these concepts. So I try to relate it to what is it that I'm doing here. That's the only effort that I put in.
Excellent, ma'am.
Ma'am, this all traditional principles are like foundation for our management. What you talked about Bhagavad Gita and Jainism and all. So it is like a foundation for management. So how effectively still they are using in the management now?
See, basically, we are using it. We don't recognize it. We are using it. Like if we have to take intrinsic motivation as a concept, that I think by large all of us understand that intrinsic motivation, that's something that satisfies our soul, satisfies our inner self, is more important than the extrinsic rewards that have been given. So we have been using all these concepts pretty much. When we are talking about the third eye, we go to the id, we go to the insights that we have. We have what we call as the gut feeling. And when taking a decision, though rationality may come, the gut feeling also plays a role there. So we can see that it is a practice, but then we have not coined it as such. We have not put it into the paper as such.
There is one question.
Yeah.
Also, do the Jain institutions practices Panchashali in their practices?
Yes, an attempt is always made. See, when we are talking about Panchashila, practices, the vows that is being done, it is always said, I think not only in Jainism, I think pretty much in all religions, we have Satya, Ahimsa, Asteya, Aparigraha, and Brahmacharya in different forms. The level of how I practice in the organization or how I look at it when I'm taking a decision is something that is more important. And I think to a larger extent, if someone wants to have a contentment of or a satisfaction of the job that they are doing, they practice to a larger extent, each one of them. And we have seen that, maybe, sometime next, some corporate examples can also be given as references to these tattvas.
Vidya ma'am, I think we can conclude this session only.
Okay, it's already
Yes.
time, so we
Yes.
conclude the session. Ma'am, it's my heartfelt gratitude to the Purnima ma'am who has enlightened the session about the Bhagavad Gita, how this all the traditional concepts are evolving in the management, and this all principle like beyond the 100th principle, developing third eye, immortal organization soul, devotion to the duty. This all principle have given the more comprehensive understanding of how it is evolving in the management. So, ma'am, your presentation was not only the informative, but also a thought-provoking. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for having such
Thank
a
you.
wonderful session. It's what the outstanding session. We look forward to have such an experience session, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
I actually would like to thank, Sindhuja and the SES team, because I think because of you, I could put a little more thoughts of mine into this direction. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity given.
Now, I would like to hand over to Sindhuja ma'am for next session. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Venkatesh sir, hope I have sir is here. Venkatesh sir, audio. Sir, namaste. Ha, sir. Okay. So much other ado, so let me introduce our second speaker for the day 3 of Navaratri e-lecture series. So on behalf of Center for Education and Social Studies, I welcome Professor H.R. Venkatesh sir. Let me give a brief background about today's speaker of the session. Dr. H.R. Venkatesha is a professor, management. Okay. So Dr. H.R. Venkatesha is his professor in management and able administrator. Work initiative he have done with a lot of developmental studies and quality in education, with over a 35 years of experience in teaching, research, consultation, and he has served as professor of management and head of the department, and served as a director and member of board studies at various business schools and universities across Karnataka. Under his guidance, more than 10 scholars have awarded PhD from different universities, and Sir is have the in his account of more than 50 plus publications, international and as well as national publications. He has delivered lectures in various foreign universities, to name a few: Dato Bukta University, Japan, Ryoko University, Kyoto, Japan, Munzu University, China, etc. If anything I have missed, the list goes on. His simplicity and his reverence towards his practice is something which I have looked forward and learned from him. Sir, it is a great pleasure to have you on Navaratri e-lecture series session. I look forward. Today you will be addressing lessons from Indian business history. So the session is over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. And I think by now you can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Today, the topic I have taken is Indian answers to global questions. The precise topic is 189.1, and this is my second revised version of the talk on this topic. And there are some, there are some basic legal global questions for which we have to find Indian answers. And when we talk about Indian management per se, I strongly feel that today we have Japanese management, and we talk about a lot of Japanese jargons like 5S and ikigai, and a lot of Japanese jargons have become popular in countries like India. And I think their economic supremacy is one of the root cause. And if you go to music, you look at a lot of Indian youth today are fascinated towards Korean music. How it is possible? I mean, I think Korean economic supremacy is there. And if the Western management thought has come to India, and if that is ruling the world, I think the Western corporations have made it possible. The right royal way of bringing Indian management to the global platform is building Indian organizations, maybe in NGO sector or in corporate sector or in social sector, whatever way possible. The best way to do is bringing efficient, effective Indian organizations who can make difference to India and to the world. That is the best and the right royal way of taking Indian management to the global platform. But Indian history, Indian knowledge repository is very rich. Today, my effort is to bring out few of the global questions and how to address those questions in our way, I mean in Indian way. And I of course, there are a lot of undercurrents to this. Say, for example, when we talk about global organizations, economy in India, I personally feel that India and Indians per se do not, maybe historically or by our belief in the spiritual aspect, we do not give much importance to Artha. That is one opinion I have, and it is reflected in Indian society too. Say for example, when we talk about Bharata Ratnas, for example, right? To how many wealth creators and employment creators we have given Bharata Ratnas. I don't remember anybody but for JRD. Of course, there are a number of people, maybe like Verghese Kurian or Narayan Murthy, or I think this is my personal opinion. We as a country have failed to recognize the wealth creators and employment creators, and I think as a country, we for decades we thought that all those who make money are looked in a different lens. That is another concept, and let me not go into that today. But that becomes very important when we discuss Indian management thought. If we do not bring Indian corporate into the forefront, if you do not bring Indian corporate leaders into the forefront, and if you do not bring Indian management thought leaders to the forefront, I don't think that is going to happen in the short run. And what are the main aspects that I am talking today? The main aspects I am talking today are, I have identified 10 global questions, and I want to find Indian answers to those 10 questions. And by that, can we see the problems in a different perspective? That is the agenda of today's presentation. First problem I see is in Indian corporate and in the global corporate, there is overemphasis on right and wrong. And I think every individual, every aspect should be looked into from a different perspective. It is beyond right and wrong. Of course, we are deeply influenced by the binary orientation of right and wrong. Either you must be a wrong or you must be. See, it is like Indian films. Either we have a villain or we have a hero. A hero doesn't do any mistake. Villain never does any right things. That is the way our mindset is made. And I think we have to come out of that. And when we talk about that, in India, we have our own philosophy. See, we say, Eka Satya Jagat Nitya. It is a lie. It is not true. There are many truths. There are many colors. There are many shades. There are many perspectives. And we never, in the corporate world, I mean, we always look into the problem as right and wrong. And I think we have to come out of this, and even in our many decisions and the way in which you look at things, we always think in binary way. Either it is right or wrong. And for a right, it could be many shades. Wrong, it could be many shades. Say, for example, if a boy who is poor, who is starved for 3 days, if he steals some bread, and if you say it is wrong, yes, it is wrong, but it is not completely wrong. There is another shade for his, action, and he has not eaten for 3 days. I mean to say, there are many ways of looking into it. Therefore, I strongly believe Indian companies and the corporate can learn from India is that there could be many shades. It could be empathy. It could be, looking at each individual from his own perspective. Therefore, we shall solve this global problem with Indian thought. What is that Indian thought I am talking about? I am talking about Sahasra Satya. I mean, in this lecture, for next 40 minutes, I will try to give some jargons, Bharatiya management jargons. And one of the jargon I am proposing is Sahasra Satya. I mean, this is a old Indian belief, philosophy that Satya would have 1,000 faces. Truth would have 1,000 faces, and all corporate leaders have to be taught, have to be nurtured, have to be mentored, have to be sensitized to the concept of Sahasra Satya. That is first thing I want to propose. Another thing which is very, very dangerous in the corporate world and even in our personal lives is that compartmentalization or functional orientation. I always, many companies would lose sight on their vision. Vision, and if we ask an employee in an organization, I don't know, say if in my organization, if you come to ABBS, if you ask what is vision of ABBS, I don't know how many of my employees would be able to, give the spirit of the vision. And the problem is we miss the bus. At the end of the day, in the functional areas, for example, marketing, just now, my colleague in CES, Purnima, was talking about that. We talk about compartmentalization, and that is very dangerous. And this has crept into different fields. And look at the medicine, what we practice today. An orthopedician or an ophthalmologist or a dentist will not know anything about the other disciplines in the medicine. How safe it is, and I think we have to look the problem in comprehend, I mean, in toto. And when we have to look at a problem in toto, Western world, too much of specialization, too much of functional orientation has has derailed the very purpose of the management. That is why we have to look into the holistic organization. Vision of the organization is one which integrates all functions, but are we practicing it? And how many organizations does it? And I think we strongly propose there is a solution. What is the solution? Look at our Indian practices. It could be in music, it could be in any discipline. For example, I am proposing, Ayurvedic organization. Why I am calling it as an Ayurvedic organization? What is the connection between health and an organization? I mean, the jargon I am proposing is all organizations or any organization has to look into its vision comprehensively and has to function like that, and every functional area should look into the total vision of the organization. That organization can be called as an Ayurvedic organization. See, Ayurvedic is one type of medicine which not only looks into, it is like yoga. It is like yoga in the sense, yoga is not only looks into your, body, it also looks into your mind. I mean, your Western management is like our gym. I mean, gym always looks into your body, it never talks about mind. But yoga always talks about, by mind and body. Like that, Ayurveda is one medicinal discipline or one line of medicine which talks about the comprehensive health of the person. I mean, it takes health as a complete, I mean, body as one unit, unlike the Western allopathic medicine. I mean, we know that there are a number of advantages in allopathic way also. I'm just calling this way of orientation as Ayurvedic organization. And another problem is, I am looking at the problem is, we miss the bus by telling that we never consider universe as one. And I strongly believe all galaxies are connected, and all, I mean, we would have, say for example, for a weather forecast, I always argue with my meteorological friends that whatever precision they bring, if they tell there is no rain, there will be some rain. I mean, why it is happening? Why? One of the reasons could be they must have understood our currents in the ocean, they must have understood the temperature, but they have not thought that there is influence from other planets in the galaxy, Milky Way galaxy. Why that? There could be influence of one galaxy on the other galaxy. I mean, we have to look this universe as one. I'm sorry to tell this now that in India, whole over the world, we do not look as this one universe as one unit, but we separate it as Earth, and we think that what is happening in the Earth is the great thing. And to give you an example, in Indian, practices, in Indian history, in Indian knowledge system. I am from the Western Ghat part of Karnataka, and there was a pickle making system. My grannies used to, prepare a pickle once in a year. Sometimes it used to last for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. Yes, I mean what I say. The pickle, what they make out of the mango, tender mango midi, we call, used to, there used to be there for 7, 8 years. They had some beliefs. For example, they never used to put pickle on a full moon day or a half moon day, or they never used to. They never used to allow a woman who is under menstruation to participate in the pickle. No, I am not telling that all Indian beliefs are superstitious. Of course, we have to test this by scientific, questioning. But it is not that the practices which have been there for centuries can be ruled out in one go and tell that this is superstition. The point here is this. The point here is from weather forecasting, for any action on the management or environmental protection, environmental management, we cannot look into the earth as in cuts and pieces. We have to look into whole universe as one. That is another management principle I am trying to push, and what I am calling it as Indian pickle model. I don't know how many of you take this, and I know that when it comes from the Western world, people take either ikigai or any other concept. But when it comes from India, I don't know how serious the world is looking at us. Another very important aspect, which is the problem today, is ecological footprints. What is this ecological footprint? Ecological footprint is the land required to meet an individual consumption requirement. And I am sorry to tell this, that countries like India are in a very safe zone. The per individual ecological footprint is just 1.2 acres. But in the Western countries like USA, North American countries in particularly, their ecological footprint is something like 14 hectares. Imagine if all world lives like, North Americans. We have to bring through 3 planet Earths. Where from we bring 3 planet Earths? What is happening today? What is happening today is we all emulate the West. We all want to eat like Americans. We want to put attire like Americans, or it could be Westerners, or what is modern, we call it as that modern, I put it in quote. And what is this one model we are talking about? And I think this is one lesson we can tell the world. This is a country which believes in diversity. And we have to tell the world that there are, Easterners think Earth in a different way. Say, for example, there was a movie called Wandering Earth, and Westerners think of going to the other planet, but Eastern concept, we want to take Earth with us to the Earth as a spaceship. We love Earth. We consider it as Mother Earth. And we want to take the Indian roots. We are a country with so many dialects, so many languages, so many sects. And you look at our greatest epic Ramayana. I am told there are more than 300 Ramayanas. And I am told in Buddhist Jatakas, Sita and Rama are narrated as brother and sister. That is the essence of India. That is the diversity of India. We believe in different cultures, different food system, different patterns. I think this we have to tell the world. World need not eat the same way. All need not eat pizza and burger. and all need not wear the same jeans, and there are other ways of living, and there is, I mean, each one, I mean, that is what Gandhi says, earth provides enough to satisfy every man's needs, but not for every man's greed, anybody's greed. And that lesson we have to learn from India, and that we call it as Bhumata, and we have to consider it as Mata, and not like leaving this spaceship and going to some other. I mean, that is, you are kicking the ladder in which you have risen, and taking a new stand, and that is another aspect. One more thing in corporate, in countries, in society, biggest problem today is inclusiveness. And inclusiveness in corporate, in different perceptions. Say, for example, it could be to whom you sell the goods, what you do with your profit, where you plow back your profit, and how you use the resources. Do you include the, do you give all the value to the person who invented the technology, or do you give share to the people who grow the resources? It could be Africa, it could be India. Or inclusiveness in every country. See, haves and have, I mean, the gap between the rich and the poor is widening. I mean, are we bringing this inclusiveness? It is not happening. And it is true in the West too. And inclusiveness is not only among countries, it is among, say, for example, southern hemisphere countries and northern hemisphere countries. Look at the economic divide. I mean, one of the problems corporate face today, one of the problem, the management problem in the corporate is inclusiveness. How to include everybody. Say, for example, if Starbucks sells a coffee for 400 rupees, I want to know how much it is given to the coffee grower. Of course, Starbucks is one of the, I mean, the point here is that in their very vision statement, they talk that we want to be socially sensitive corporate. I mean, yes, there is DNA of social inclusion, but in spite of that, how much they give? The point is this: to make inclusiveness, we have to struggle. I consider, say, for example, there is in India, in Karnataka, and of course, Rangoli is a popular art form. Every dot is included in the pattern. Unless every dot is included, you cannot internalize them, it won't work. Rangoli is an art form. If you leave even one dot outside, Rangoli is incomplete. If we want to teach the world that inclusiveness is the essence, without inclusiveness, things doesn't work. What we can call that jargon, and how we can push that Indian thought to the external world. We can tell them there is an Indian art. The art is Rangoli. Rangoli talks about, a mechanism where until you make each dot inclusive, Rangoli is not complete. I mean, this concept, I call it as Rangoli model. And the point is this: here, art is a medium. Art is a way of expression. I am talking about the philosophy. I am talking about what we can take to the global platform. If Rangoli is a symbol of that, taking the inclusiveness to the globe, I think we can do wonders, and we can convey the things to the world that there are many things in India like this which makes the system inclusive. And we have to tell the corporate, we have to tell the world, we have to tell the world leaders that please follow the Rangoli model. Rangoli model is a model which talks about inclusiveness. Take everybody together, and then only system works. And if you think that you take few with you, and you leave vast majority outside, maybe because, say for example, how USA is making such a big money, and they are shifting all their polluting. Even if you eat, pizza in a tetra cartoon in USA, that is not recycled in USA. It is shipped to some other country. How they are making money? How they are making money is technical giants like gamma companies, Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. I mean, they all have developed a model where, of course, we have to accept some of the great things of United States of America. They have invited the greatest minds from across the globe, and they could build that pool of technocrats who can create, modern, unchallenged technology, and that we shall emulate and that we appreciate. But boss, look at this. That is fine, but look at the inclusiveness. And there are people who use your Microsoft here. There are people who use your technology here, and don't just sell and make the profit. Include everybody and take whole, population together. That is the concept of Rangoli model. Another thing, in performance management, we have seen that lot of mechanisms have been evolved. I mean, HR, a lot of books have been written, and a lot of theories have been proposed. Say, for example, a bell curve is one thing which talks about 10%, 80%, and 10%, the best performers, the worst performers, and the medians. And the problem here is, the point is, there are many limitations. See, there is no empathy in this, and in a small organization, of course, all of you know, I mean, if you are a management student or a teacher, you will be knowing. Otherwise, for other population who are, my audience now, bell curve talks about dividing the organizational employees into three categories in the annual performance management. The 10% of the worst performers, 10% best performers, and 80% are median. The worst performers have to be either fired or to be action has to be taken. Why you have this attitude? And what makes you to think that at least 10% of them would be the worst performers? And where is your empathy to take care of them? What is the reason for them doing that bad? I mean, you have, of course, I am not telling we should not take action. I mean, performance measurement without management is useless. It doesn't have meaning. And but at the end of the day, I think there is an Indian model that I want to propose to the world. What is that Indian model I am talking about? I am talking about Sam, Dam, Dand, and Ved. And it is, of course, many books talk about, it is almost like carrot and stick approach. I'm sorry, Sam, Dand, and Ved talks much more than that. I mean, it divides, it does in 4 stages. First stage, you encourage. Second stage, third stage, you give punishment. I mean, you give him, enough time. You show enough empathy. And then, of course, Ved is there, exploiting is there. That is another thing. I mean, I am not telling that. And this is one thing we can tell that, can we call it as SDDB evaluation or something like that? I don't know. No, I'm just, please, those who are watching me, please note that I am not giving any, judgment. What I'm trying to propose is that there is another way of looking at things. This is one way, and I'm just sowing the seed. And what all Indian thoughts that can be, taken to the global platform is the one thing. And of course, I'm very happy SES is doing this program, and the Chanakya is the brainchild of SES, and this is one of the Chanakya Niti. And I am very happy to tell that SDDB evaluation could be evaluation. We can tell the world, you see, there is one more way of evaluating the employees. Have empathy, give enough, enough uh, time and opportunity for an employee to correct himself or herself, and you can do that. Of course, exceptionally you can do bad, but every year don't think that my 10% of the employees are going to be the worst, I'm going to fire them. I mean, that philosophy of looking at that glass itself has to be no, I'm just giving an example is not an explanation, it is just tip of the iceberg. And there are a lot of theories, and I am not canvassing that there is no full-fledged theory to evaluate, but this could be one of the theories which organizations can look into at the global level. And another aspect I am talking to you is about the depression management. Today, corporates talk about depression, psychologists talk about depression, hypertension, and most of the time they go for medicines. And I'm not telling medicine do not work. I'm told in Scandinavian countries, because of the weather, and people go for depression for 3 months, 6 months, they do not see the sunlight. And of course that is there. And the point I'm talking is, here, is there any other solution? Is there any Indian solution for this? Indian way of managing this? I think there is an Indian way of managing. I mean, Indian music. I mean, there is a way of managing this. And we are very rich Carnatic and Hindustani music, and ragas can help individual manage his emotions, and it helps in suppressing anger, enables an individual to maintain even temperament. And I'm told, I'm not an expert, don't ask me questions in music, and I'm told hypertension and for depression, there are different Bhima Palas or Puriya or Gorakh Kalyan and Natanarayan, and there are many ways in which you can manage the depression. Of course, one of the ways could be this. And why we should not tell the world that there is another way of looking at depression, there is another way of looking at hypertension. You can manage in a different way. There is an Indian way. That Indian way of managing could be through our music, through our Carnatic music or Hindustani music, and that shall we call it as Raga Shanti. And I am trying to see, the idea is this: any jargon we use, it has to be there in the community, and if we continuously use it, see what is 5S, what is Kanban, and what is the jargons. Maybe say, for example, we talk so much about Six Sigma. I mean, much before Motorola talks about that, many Indian say Dabbawalas, it's a bold story I am talking about. The point is this: the point is, when we practice, when we have a system, when we have a mechanism, why we should not tell the world that we have a mechanism to address this problem? And this is Indian way of managing things, and that becomes Indian management. And we have to wear a new glass to talk about Indian management. And this is one of the versions I am talking about, and that version could be in managing depression, could be your Raga Shanti. And another thing is happiness imbalance in societies. You see, why people are not happy? That's a $1 million question. Of course, when we talk about individual, that is one thing. When you talk about society, is one other thing. What is society's happiness barometer? And all your economic activity, all your activities have to lead to happy and healthy society. And my question is this: if you talk and if you look at the Western way of living, where luxury means more consumption, if you think more happiness, then Western model is the best model. But I don't believe in that. More consumption need not lead to more happiness. Now, can we tell economy managing the society, there is GDP is important, but is it all important or it is alone important? And I think what is happening today is we are the world is obsessed with the economic orientation. And of course, they are using technological tools, as I told you earlier, in a big way. Technology is a solution to a problem. I know that technology reaches common man through a business organization. That is fine. But what has to be the end result? What India can tell the world? What India can preach the world? And we have seen that, and I am told, and we have all read, Bhutan is one of the happiest country which carries most of the Indian values of Buddhism. I mean, what we can tell the world? I mean, here this model propagates a system where everybody welfare is taken care, or majority's welfare is taken care. What we shall call it as Bahujana Sukhaya, Bahujana Hitaya, Sarve Jano Sukhino Bhavantu. I mean, the essence is this. The essence is how to develop a mechanism where majority can be kept happiness, kept in happy mood. And are we managing the society? Are we driving the country? Are we driving the aspects of the international affairs? In what direction we are doing that? I think we are missing on this. Then another thing is customer in the corporate web. I think corporates spend millions and billions of dollars in managing, manipulating consumer behavior. How you think your advertisement can affect you? How you, of course, it affects your children, it affects me, it affects you, it affects country, it affects society as a whole. I mean, consumers do not have that resource. I don't know why it is happening. Maybe because of the globalization. Consumer organizations, which is to do extremely well in the Western countries, are not making sound now. I mean, you see, 70s, 80s, we have seen how consumer organizations were very strong. Look at India. What is happening in India? Same story. I remember 70s, 80s, up to 90s, consumer organizations, Consumer Education Research Society in Ahmedabad, Consumer Education Center, I mean, Jaipur Cuts. Even in Karnataka, there were many consumer activists, Mr. Kamath, Jaji Mandana. I mean, there were many consumer activists. Due to globalization, that has been, murdered. I mean, there is no consumer activism now. There is no consumerism now. Of course, consumerism has two meanings. One is a movement by the consumers, which is not there, but there is another consumerism, greed for consumption. That is there now, and that has overtaken now. And but it has overtaken. One more thing is, of course, in India also a lot of effort has been made. In UK, there was a magazine called which is to tell the consumers which one you to buy, which one not to buy. Now it is almost dead. In India, we had Insight, of course, from again CRS Gujarat, I mean Ahmedabad. That is also dead now. And Manubai Shah used to do that, and after her, his daughter Preeti Shah came. I mean, that is another story. What I am talking to you. But what is happening now? What is happening is corporate is ruling. There is no movement by the consumers. Government want development. I don't know what is the development means, because they want more taxes, more money, more companies, more production, more consumption. And in this race, consumer has lost. And I think we have to look into that. Consumer is no more a king. We have to change the orientation. Every corporate has to respect the consumer, and every corporate today think how to manipulate things, how to fool him, how to sell him more, how to make him consume more, whether he gives satisfaction to him or not important, whether it is required to him are not important, whether it is required to his health is not important to them. He wants you to consume more. That is the agenda. That is the agenda of the governments. That is development. I mean, now how to overcome this model, and this is happening throughout the world. How to overcome this? The best way to overcome is looking at consumer in a different lens, different perspective. Look at him in a different way. He is not here to fool. You are not, don't wait for an opportunity how to manipulate his behavior. The answer, I think, customer is an atithi to you. That is what, of course, Gandhi's quote is very popular. I don't want to talk about. I think unless corporates have this orientation to the consumer, countries will not improve, good will not happen to society, and I think the world is going in the wrong direction. We have to tell the world that treat your customer like your atithi who comes to your house. Unless you change that orientation, you see, we never plan our, atithi means what? We respect him. We see, it's all in the book that consumer is the king. We don't want that crown at all. We want to be treated. Our whole world has to treat. See, look at the orientation now. Corporate orientation is to 14 module. Now I think 15 module of iPhone has come, I believe. I mean, the point is how to sell him more, and how to make him consume more. And I read a very old book. There is a book called Joyless Economy, and which tells that there is no fun in this economy. Of course, he was a communist, and he wrote that book long back. We want to make him consume more, and that consumption breeds another consumption. One consumption breeds another consumption. Say, for example, you don't want to wash your clothes, you want a washing machine. You don't want to wash your utensils, you want dishwashers. Then at the end, what do? You don't have any exercise to, you buy another machine, exercycle you want, because you don't want to walk to your office. I mean, that is the essence of the book, Joyless Economy. And that is what happening to the economy today. I mean, we want to sell more. And whole world is going that direction. If we want to change the world in which they think, I think Indian management is taking consumer as the atithi, and we shall call this atithi devo bhava. I mean, I think that is the essence we want to talk about. I have added few more very, when Sindhuja spoke to me, sir, you have to give a presentation. I thought, what I can speak on this occasion, Indian management. I wanted to give a new orientation. Keeping that in mind, I developed a few more temple economic model. I mean, just I'm trying to sow a seed. Please understand, the idea is to take Indian achievements to the global platform, and that becomes management today, tomorrow. That becomes way of practicing tomorrow. I have developed 4 modules now. Iskano Kitchen, Vidyashankar Architecture, Buddha Eco Model, Temptainment. What is this? Very simple. It is on the fun side. What is the ISKCON kitchen you have seen? I stay off Kanakpura Road. There is an ISKCON kitchen, a lot of technology used. Through gravity, they send the rice, dal, vegetable, and human interference is the least. And we all know that I need not talk about ISKCON kitchen. And I think whole world, this is one of the very, very, very rare experiment. Then what I want to tell now? What I want to tell now is, I want to tell anywhere cooking in large scale using modern technology for serving free food. Shall we call it as Iskano kitchen? I mean, I'm just proposing, right? If any of you are writing a book on this model, please try to include this jargon and don't forget to mention there that this word is coined by Dr. H.R. Venkatesh, right? Okay. Another thing, I mean, Iskano kitchen. Iskano kitchen is a concept where if you are cooking kitchen in a large scale using modern technology, serving food for free, why we should not coin it as Iskano kitchen, right? Another thing is I am from Sringeri, and there is a very popular historic scientific temple called Vidyashankar temple, and the architecture of that is one of the finest architecture. And shall we do one thing? Any architecture which uses productively the sun rays in different seasons, can we call it as shall we call it as Vidyashankar architecture or some other name? I don't know. I know this architecture. That's why I told this. The essence is this: when this was built thousands of years back, and what is the architecture, and have we made this to the world? And I think we have to take these things to the Western jargons and make people aware of that. And this is another very important thing. And this is about, Buddha eco model, Buddha eco model. That is, I was talking to you when I was talking about Bhutan. And please note that any country which wants to give happiness to which wants to give more importance to happiness in their economics model than the GDP, then that model can be called as Buddha eco model, because Buddha talks about happiness. Buddha talks, he was more an agnostic. He did not care much about theists and atheists, and he said, I am an agnostic, believe in your work, do your work properly. And that we all know a Buddhist economy. I mean, Buddhist talk about importance for happiness over GDP. I mean, if any economy, maybe a corporate, who knows, I mean, can think I am following Buddha economic model because my importance to happiness is more important than the GDP. I mean, what hell we can do with GDP if we are not happy, if the population is not happy? What to do with that? I mean, if all are unhappy and if your GDP is great, what to do with that GDP? I don't understand. And temptainment. This is another jargon I am developing as far as the temple is concerned. What is this temptainment? Shall we tell the world that I'm talking? This is Bharatanatyam and my niece performing here, and any entertainment which is value based. Please note that in temples, of course, I am not talking about Ganesha Utsavas. Ganesha Utsavas is a different story. You go to any Indian temple, their value-based music is either instrumental, vocal is sung. Shall we tell the world that anywhere you play, you give entertainment through value-based music? Shall we call it as temptainment? I don't know. I'm just throwing, ideas at you. And that is the point I'm talking about. At the end of the day, what point my agenda is this: Bharatiya Management Glossary. Beyond right and wrongs, we can call it as Sahasra Satya. Instead of compartmentalization, functional orientation, we can call those organizations as Ayurvedic organization. Connected universe, we can call it Indian Picken model. Or if somebody comes up with some other idea, some other jargon, please welcome. Our ecological footprints, yes, I told you what is the problem with ecological footprints. Inclusiveness, Rangoli model, of course, it's a very popular art form in Karnataka. Performance management, SDDB model, of course, this is very Chanakya's Niti. And depression management, maybe Ragashanti. Welfare is Bahujana Satahidaya, Bahujana Sukhaya. And customer in corporate where Batiti Devo Bhava. Temple economic model, Iskano kitchen, Vidyashankar architecture, Buddha eco model, temptainment. Please note that I'm sorry, I'm not demeaning anything. I'm only trying to, give another perspective. But before I conclude, why I named my lecture as 189 1 principle. Now, thinking about good ideas, when to involve all the stakeholders in an organization, thinking good of all, seeking noble thoughts from all stakeholders, what we shall call. See, every organization would think about good ideas. See, they tell, give me ideas. Google gives half an hour time. Employee don't do anything in one of the Bangalore offices. And I'm told more productivity has come in that time when, because more ideas people generate during that time. I mean, every organization wants good ideas. Every organization, if you want to involve all the stakeholders in the idea, if you thinking good of all, if any corporate in the world seeking noble thoughts from all stakeholders, what we shall call it as? What we shall call it as is, we shall call it as 189 1 principle. What is this 189 1 principle I am talking about? I am talking about Rigveda, Mandala 1, I am 81, verse 1, where it talks about let noble thought come to us from every side. I mean to say, these principles are there in India. If anybody is writing a book on any stakeholder, taking noble thoughts from all stakeholders, they can tell it is 189 1 principle. It is already there in Indian Bhagavad Gita. I mean, Rigveda. I mean, the point I am talking is this. The point I am driving is India has rich heritage. We have epics, we have traditions, we have practices, and Indians think differently. Of course, we have problems too. It is not that everything is all right, all Western is bad, and I am not concluding that. I am not proposing that. Only thing I am trying to drive you all is that this is another way of looking at Indian management thought. And if I have succeeded in sowing the seed of giving another orientation to Indian management thought, I think my effort and stress effort is useful. And I think it is 45 minutes now. I think, here questions are dangerous. And I don't know what questions you would ask because I have given judgments. And when I have given judgment, there is space for polishing it. There is space for redoing it. There is space for reorienting it. If anybody is interested, please. Madam Sindhuja.
Yes, sir. We have one question which is asked. Thank you for your inspiring session. I truly enjoyed it. Divakar Singh ji is mentioning. In our society, there is a regrettable trend of dismissing Indian knowledge system as a mere superstitions or myths, largely due to colonial mindset ingrained in our culture for over 200 years. It's disheartening to witness the rejection of our ancient wisdom. I want to understand your opinion on what will we as a society start appreciating and respecting our own knowledge system. This introspection is vital for our culture, identity, and intellectual growth.
Yeah, I mean, we have to understand one thing. When we practice the world, or when we practice in what we preach, naturally what happens is vanity comes to that. In India, problem is we preach a lot, but we practice less. The thing what we have to do in India is what, of course, our ancestors have done great job and we have a rich heritage. But I think in practice, there is some problem in India. And if we address that, I think we are second to none in the world as far as the heritage and the richness of the thoughts are concerned.
Anyone from the participants, any questions? Yeah, we have a second question, sir, from Satish Gowda. Very interesting presentation. It's not a question, actually, it's an acknowledgement. Thank you. Please mention any organization adopted our traditional knowledge and leading successfully. Satish ji.
Yeah, I mean, Satish, there are many organizations in Belgaum. There is one entrepreneur called Satish Hundre. He has done his organization on the basis of Indian philosophy, and there are no security guards, and there is no check on them, and everybody follows the Indian way of managing, and there are no supervisors, and everybody to start with, they start with a prayer. I mean, there are many organizations. If you Google about Suresh Sundre, I mean, you would know what he is doing in Belgaum. Yeah, there are many organizations.
Thank you, sir. So, third questions. And I think there is no question. Any questions from the audience who wants to speak to the speaker? Anybody? Dr. S. Patil ji, thank you, sir, for excellent session. The NEP 2020 is implementing the IKS at all levels. How many more do you think it will take for total change?
Total change is a continuous process, Mr. Patel, and I think we have to continuously do it. Of course, if you look at the straws in the wind, always already we can see many changes happening, and I think we are in the right direction. And but India has its own problem. We have baggage of 140 crore population, poverty. I mean, it cannot be addressed in one day. In hunger index, I'm told we are 1/11th in the world or something like that. I mean, we have a lot of issues. We have a lot of baggage, and it cannot be done overnight. But if you look at what is happening in India today, I think we are in the right direction.
I think there are no more questions, sir. So let me make a formal vote of thanks, sir. Today's session, you started with the magic number, and you ended with it very in a very in a knack. It is the knack and the art of communicating, something which everyone would have to learn. And the most important part, the glossary which you presented, right from Sahasra Satya to Atiti Devo Bhava. So the whole gamut of you gave a different side of it, as well as the blended approach, how we can connect and conceptualize to the existing practice of management thought. So this is a key takeaway message for everyone. And it was interesting to look at few models that can be connected in a different way, though it is being spoken same thing served in a different way. The raga shanti is very much it's something which you connected with Six Sigma, is excellent, something which I personally acknowledge towards it. On behalf of Center for Education Social Studies, sir, we thank you from bottom of our heart for making a time with all your busy schedule and sharing your experience and expertise on your view of Bharatiya management. So this will help all the practitioners, industry, academic practitioners, students to dwell more towards the research as well as practice in Bharatiya management and research. Though it is a very niche area, a lot of more work to do happen. So, but this inspires us a lot. The session gives a lot of new ways of thinking and horizons towards practicing Bharatiya management. Once again, sir, I thank you for the excellent session for the day.
Thank you very much.
and much other ado, I will inform that tomorrow is the last day of the session. So we have the ninth speaker, Dr. Rama Prasad TS, his Principal Transformation Nokia Network. So who will be speaking on insight into the management from Bhagavad Gita. So don't miss the session, and it's we have come to the final lap of the Bharatiya e-lecture, Navaratri e-lecture series. It didn't feel like the 4 days of Jnana Yajna is going to get over soon. Wish you all happy Navaratri. See you same time, exactly 4:50 p.m. tomorrow, and followed by validatory session. Thank you so much, sir. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Vidya, for moderating the session, and